Hi, okay, we're back on. So let me go to my my files and open up the notes where I stopped. And let me show you some references that came across in doing some keyword searches on databases regarding qualitative research. Here's something I found that was kind of interesting. Make sure you can see it here. So share screen. So this is from a few years ago. This is it looks like a press release from East Carolina University. It goes on here. This is from East Carolina University news release. Many students struggle to write a simple research paper, change the assignment to include qualitative research message, and the task becomes even more demanding. Just to show you a reference to qualitative research. It says here, Dr. Sharon Knight, Department of Health Education and Promotion at East Carolina University, served as a qualitative researcher on the Institute of Medicine team that managed a congressionally mandated assessment of the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. So the US government funded a research project, a qualitative research project to focus on AIDS. Her experience enables her to share effective qualitative design and processes with students. So this is a professor at East Carolina University. I draw on this experience all the time, said Knight. I express to students the importance of persistence because it can take a long time to embrace a qualitative research approach. Qualitative interviewing gathers complex data and can yield thousands of words or hours of audio recordings. The data is transcribed, analyzed, and coded to produce a narrative of the findings. The research explores a wide range of people's perspectives and experiences. The design process for the research is not completely determined in the beginning. It is emergent, responsive to the context and participants. On the team that assessed the President's emergency plan for AIDS relief, Knight was central to implementing a qualitative evaluation process that produced credible findings from a cross-country data collection analysis related to the program's effects on HIV-related health issues, prevention, treatment, and care programs, health systems, and impact on child health and welfare in 13 countries. This is a big research project. Knight worked on the project from August 2010 through 2012, traveling back and forth to 6 countries while teaching distance education courses at East Carolina University. And she said that these were exhausting. She had to gather these interviews. All the research methods are labor intensive, said Knight. The difference is when and how the labor is invested. People do not seem to like transcription from audio recordings. It can seem overwhelming to cope with all the words that are collected. The team developed an extensive audit trail, both electronic and hard copy, that chronicled all the contacts, interviews, and debriefings. The trail included agenda and activity logs, analysis and interpretation notations, and a code book that fostered team members' ability to consistently label or code segments of the narrative data. As I said, there's lots of software available to help you do this, but you got to pay for it. And I think we have a subscription here at Catholic University to one called NVivo. And they will transcribe your audio recorded MP4 file or your Zoom file. But they charge you for it. Back then, they used to do it by hand. You used to have to listen and you can imagine how fun that was. Names and participants and their countries were not divulged to protect confidentiality. We guarded the data, said Knight. We carried the data with us on the plane. It was like being in the Secret Service. I mean, this is talking about people who have HIV/AIDS. This is, again, a stigma. Person has AIDS is seen as a bad person, right? So making sure that this data was anonymous and keeping it anonymous, making sure nobody else can see it, is critically important. And if she failed to keep it secret, and remember, she's working with other people, she's going to be blamed, this Professor Knight, and lose her job. if one of her research assistants somehow does something with this data that's not right. Knight found the team research especially satisfying because the qualitative research was such an integral part of the undertaking. Working with a team that had no experience with qualitative data appealed to me. It was so heartening to see them become qualitative researchers. I felt a sense of mission and a sense of commitment, said Knight. And it goes on here. This is, to really, for the East Carolina University, say our professors are so great. Look what they're doing. Oh, yes. It goes on talking more about qualitative research. She teaches qualitative research and evaluation methods. And it just concludes with a nice little statement. Qualitative research is a skill set for life, she said. It teaches you to authentically listen. So what does authentically listen mean? I'll let you think about that. We only have like 10 minutes left in the class, so I don't know if I really want to do an exercise or we want to go back to the notes and proceed through those, because we have a debate on Friday and that will take almost all the class on Friday. So if we don't get through all the notes today, we won't get through them. And these notes seem to be kind of useful in terms of helping you prepare your, and so you can see this, right? Okay, so and so ethnography questions, and so you can read that. Oh yeah, this is the reference to the straight edge movement I was talking about a few weeks ago. Describe the core values of the members of the straight edge movement might have been advanced by Hanifer as follows. What are the core values of the straight edge movement, and how do the members construct and understand their subjective experiences of being part of the subculture? And again, what was interesting from that study in this, I don't think it's in this appendix. It's not in this edition of the book, but it was in the earlier edition. The researcher found, it's not easy to get in with these people because they're kind of like an intense subgroup of people. They don't necessarily trust you as a researcher. You got to earn their trust. These are punk rockers who abstain from drugs and alcohol. So they go to all these pop rock and roll music concerts, dressed as punk, with the hair and the leather. Sometimes they might get into fights. Sometimes it's kind of scary. But they don't use drugs. They don't use alcohol. Some of them, they don't even, also will not have sex. And what this researcher found was it had become a self-help movement. The people that were in that movement, they came from families, from parents that had alcohol and drug problems. So they were using the punk culture environment as a way by which to overcome their tragic childhood with parents who were drug and alcohol abusers. And that was really interesting. Like, wow, really? Because I've heard people reference these straight edge people, and they're afraid of them. They think they're neo-Nazis. They're fascists. They're getting ready to organize a militia. So they don't take drugs because they want to get prepared, and they exercise and all built up, and they dress scary. They got all the leather and chains and hair. They're gonna fight in a war for Donald Trump. No, they're not like that at all. They are people that are getting away, trying to free themselves from their experience with their parents being drug and alcohol and drug addicts and alcohol abusers. Which I thought, wow, that's useful information. So like, for example, an example of a central question: what does it mean to be a college professor? Sub questions that would analyze the topic would be: what does it mean to be a college professor in the classroom? What does it mean to be a college professor as a researcher? What does it mean to be a college professor as a thesis supervisor, like supervising students doing master's and PhD theses? And what does it mean to be a college professor as a colleague in a department? That means like on committees, administrative work. Sub-questions are useful for informing core questions, which the researcher interviewer asks using data collection, including in interviews or in observations. So typically, you create 5 to 7 sub-questions. And they may evolve and change into new questions as the research that you undertake proceeds. The view the sub-questions as a method by which to divide the central question into several parts to focus on, to help you organize your research. Ask oneself if the central question were divided into some areas that I would like to explore, what would the area parts be? So, for example, I just did this really fast. Number one, how did the international students learn about the study abroad opportunity in South Korea? How did they learn about the South Korean study abroad opportunity? 2, what did the families of international students react to the students' plans to go study in Korea? I mean, again, if you're a first generation college student, I can just, I remember I told my dad, my dad was an Italian immigrant who came to the United States, and I told him I was going to go study in Russia. I studied in Russia in 1985. And the day before I got on the plane to go to, so he cried. I was like, why? I mean, it was really upsetting to me. Like, what? He had a different understanding of what study abroad meant, given his life experience, his separation from his father during World War II, his separation from his family when he had to go to the United States to escape poverty in Italy. And, that was his reaction. Now, if your father or mother works for Samsung and they travel all over the world and they say, you want to go to study in South Korea? Say, oh, it's great. Oh, yeah. So that family background is going to be important, right? How do international students relate to other Korean students at the university in Korea? 4, how do international students relate to other international students at the university in Korea? So how do the students react to other Korean students? How do the students react to other international students here? 5, what are the expectations? What expectations did international students have before they arrived in Korea? And that should be 6. How has their experience in Korea related to their expectations before arriving in Korea? So they have their expectations about arriving in Korea. How did their experience in Korea relate to those expectations? And 7, how do international students relate to their professors at the university in Korea? Because they typically have to take classes here. They want to transfer credit back to their home university. So the classroom and therefore the professors are really an important part of this. So I just did that really fast, right? The researcher can write the sub-questions to focus on analyzing further the central phenomenon which relates to the qualitative research being employed. So in a narrative study, in other words, these questions can further probe the meaning of stories. So tell me the story about what it's like for you to come here. Tell me the story about how your expectations change and evolved in response to actual experience. Tell me what it's been like to tell me the story, what it's been like to get to know Koreans. What's it been like to talk to the professors? What's been the impact? What has been your experience with Zoom? Whatever. So like I said, in a phenomenology, it will help to establish the components of the essence of the study. So again, you're going to be using theoretical constructs to conceptualize the meaning of this term essence. What is the essence of being a foreigner in a college dormitory at CUK? Living in a residence hall at a university. When I did my study abroad in Moscow in 1985, we didn't live with other Russians. It was all international students together in one building. And then they were divided between Kapstran, Kapitalistiski strani, the capitalist countries students, because this is 1985. And the other half of the building was Sotstran, the Socialistiski strani, the socialist countries. So the Afghans, the North Koreans, the Cubans, they all studied over there. And then we studied over here, the Americans, the French, the Poles, well, not the Poles, but we had a different curriculum. So it's different from Catholic University of Korea students here, obviously, because the students are living in the residence hall with Korean students. Yeah, we used to look at the wall and look at they would put the curriculum and the test questions for the students from Cuba, and they would all be so these questions in Marxist-Leninist theory. We didn't have any. Well, what we did have, we had a weekly class meeting with Господин Starodubtsev, and he would try to answer our questions about the Soviet Union. And he was a nice guy. It was too bad I was kind of a jerk because I was a communist. I want to ask him the super question and make him feel. But he was actually a nice guy. I actually learned something from him. He could, yeah. So in ground theory, it will help to detail the emerging theory and so on here. So narrative research questions. Sub-questions. What and how did, these are examples. What and how did school experiences contribute to Aime's ethnic identity? How might her peer experiences have contributed to Aime's ethnic identity? What family experiences does Aime describe as influential to her ethnic identity? So those are examples of narrative sub-questions. And that's the narrative study example that's provided in the book. Okay, so and then in phenomenological research, you can see what the examples are here. What does receiving an AIDS diagnosis represent to the people that get the diagnosis? What is difficult or easy about being diagnosed with AIDS? And how did the patient first become aware of their diagnosis or illness? Okay, I think there's another class coming in here, so we need to finish up. So that's it for today. Okay, so we'll have a debate on Friday. Bye.